Hello, delicious friends. Welcome to the last session of the conference. I think there's probably most of you will be your last session. We've made it this far. Let's push through, okay? My name is Hannah Flynn. I am the marketing manager for Failbetter Games in the UK. A bit about me. My background is in marketing and social media. I've been doing that for about 6 years. I used to work at Penguin Books, Tate Gallery, if everybody's been to Tate Modern, and for NSPCC, which is the biggest children's charity in the UK. So my background is quite varied. But now I'm the marketing manager for Failbetter. I've also been sick for 3 weeks, so I'm going to keep coughing. If every time I cough you could applaud, I'd be really happy. A bit about Failbetter. We were formed by Alexis Kennedy and Paul Arendt in 2009, and we make games with stories at their heart, specifically stories from the Fallen London universe. Is this login screen familiar to anybody? Yeah? Yes, a couple of players, people of some importance perhaps, maybe. So we also, very excitingly, just released a project that we've been working on with BioWare, which was announced just on Friday, and it's called The Last Court. It's a text game within the Dragon Age, excuse me, within the Dragon Age universe. Hey, so exciting. Every time I cough, I get a laugh. It's amazing. Okay, it's written in our storytelling engine, which is called Story Nexus, and that's available for people to use. It's a bit like building a game in Twine. You can sign in and have a go. It bridges the narrative gap between Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, and so pretty soon you can play that through the Keep if you want an introduction to what our games are like. But our main game and our main story world is Fallen London. The Fallen London universe is a world in which London has been stolen by bats. And that's everything that it sounds like it is. It's gothic, sinister, it's kind of funny, it's very absurd, it's deep, dark and marvellous, we like to say. And our universe exists primarily as a free-to-play browser game at fallenlondon.com. This is the map, but the entirety of the game is delivered through text. It's been going since 2009, and content is being added monthly to the tune now of 1 million words and counting. Sunless Sea is the sea that adjoins Fallen London is called the Untersea, and it's mentioned within Fallen London, but Sunless Sea, the game, is a game of exploration and loneliness, which allows players to set sail to locations only hinted at in Fallen London. It's 2D, top-down, and it's built in Unity. You spend about half your time progressing through the story in the same way as you would do in Fallen London, through text, and about half the time sailing around, blowing up crabs, and looking for islands to dock out where you can discover more story. This was 168% funded through Kickstarter, and that was just over £100,000, which is $160,000-ish, and it's currently available on Steam, excuse me, and Humble in early access. So, social media has always been creatively interesting to us. It's actually where everything started. The game used to be called Echo Bazaar, and Echo Bazaar was a Twitter game, and it launched in the same year as Mafia Wars and Farmville. Just quoting the founder of the game because it's complex, Echo Bazaar was originally a much smaller, very different game, a sort of predictive market in guessing what phrases people might use on Twitter. So we added more and more layers of story to that quite simple concept until the story and the lore completely devoured the original concept, and it evolved into Fallen London as you might know it now. It was really a happy marriage of a developer who put writing first and the playful kind of space of social media. It's really difficult to describe our story world and our games without pulling in references to a lot of other media. It's an interactive Victorian Gothic novel. It's got role-playing elements. It's kind of Lovecraftian. It's not actually steampunk, but it might give steampunk a tickle in a back alley, that sort of thing. We know that it's the rich story which brings people to our games, and using in-character social media helps us to showcase the tone of the game, and it breaks down barriers to entry for first-time players. Our Twitter account in character is the Echo Bazaar, which is part of the game, it is the place where you buy and sell things in the game, but it has kind of a life of its own. Our Twitter account in character is the Bazaar. excuse me, thank you, has 10 times more followers than our studio account. People are intrigued by the playfully menacing tone of voice that we use. So we've experimented a lot with social media in the last 5 years, and I have 5 things to share with you all today that might help you on your way. The first thing is know yourselves. So we've always been led by writing as a studio. So there was an understanding from the start that we would write for social media as well. But when I came along, and fairly recently, I needed to establish with the team what that understanding actually was, because it hadn't been captured anywhere. And when we discussed our social voice as a company, we realised some things about what we do which we just hadn't put into words before. We talked about the fact that playing our games makes people feel clever, but if we say we make clever games, then people don't want to play them. So if you haven't worked out those core messages about your games, it really helps just to have that conversation and to write the outcomes down. And it really keeps things clear if you have a growing team. So we know what we're doing this for. We know why we make games, our mission, our vision, and our values. Everything starts with these. These give us what we would and wouldn't say and how to say it. Your mission is your reason for existing, so ours is to make games with stories at their heart. Your vision is an aspirational goal, so for us it could be a fully realised Fallen London where everybody who comes is completely sucked into it and can't stop playing. And our values are how you act that gets you to your vision. So it could be important to you that you are representative or funny or surreal. The second thing is to really listen to people. Fallen London grew a community really quickly. Because Twitter was initially an essential part of the game, there was a quick way for players to connect with one another and with us, and you have to agree internally that you will listen to and act on what people say. The maker-player landscape is fundamentally collaborative now, and just acting on what they say isn't enough either. You have to close the feedback loop. You have to make it clear what you did based on what they told you. Feeding back is often forgotten about because it's time-consuming, but it's what builds the trust. We created a forums-based community, which is signposted throughout Fallen London. There's a place to connect with other players, which enables you to take part in different parts of the game. Like we have a game called Knife and Candle, where you can essentially just stab your friends. You need to be connected with other players through their usernames to be able to play that, and you can use it to get advice from people as well. The community has forums at its heart, but we are also active on YouTube, Facebook, Steam, Reddit, Twitter, Tumblr, and Twitch. And we're in early access at the moment, so essentially we've extended the commitment we already had with the players of Fallen London to our backers on Kickstarter for Sunless Sea. And if you're listening and making improvements and feeding back to people, then you can build trust with them, being honest, transparent, and above all, consistent. We believe in games that are driven by stories. As I've said, that's our area. Don't worry about applauding. It's okay, my ego is just filled. Within that, we have loads of channels that we can use to convey that belief. And the secret is, every different channel needs a purpose. Don't just open a Twitter account because you think you need one. What do you want your audience to think, feel, and do on each channel? Use platform-specific content wherever you can. It's really tempting just to make content and then paste it across different platforms, but it's a missed opportunity to tailor the messages to that platform's audience and the purpose of that platform. So choose them wisely, invest in the ones which work best for you and the strengths of your team for your different audiences and for different purposes. So we do a lot of in-voice communication as the Echo Bazaar, and that's great for teasers. That really engages the active community in talking among themselves about new content. But if the reference is internal to in-game content, it's only going to engage people who understand what it is, so they have to have already played the game. So know that well and then gauge your resource accordingly in terms of what you want to achieve. We also use studio voice, which is helpful for humanising what we do. To a lot of people, what happens behind the scenes at a developer is still kind of a mystery. People might understand a bit about the job titles they see at the end of a film, but they don't really necessarily know what they are for a game. So it can be multiple audiences, multiple voices, changing to make the message as authentic as possible. Developers talking about development, artists talking about art. And as someone who runs the social media, I don't speak too much about running the social media, because that's like the man behind the curtain. But I would always try and encourage my colleagues in development to speak for themselves. The more your warm audience sees you as people, the more they will support you and stick up on your behalf if and when things go wrong. Matching up what you're saying to the overall purpose of the platform is really crucial. The next thing is to bring something to the party. And we can have a party, because I'm the last person in this room, so we can just shut the door and party afterwards. Wherever you are, bring something to the party. Know what each platform is for, and give it something that fits. So this is something that we just did for a piece of seasonal content that we released last week called Hallowmas. It's a festival in fall in London that happens once a year. So we did a Follow Forever on Tumblr. And if you're not a Tumblr user, Follow Forevers are where lots of people gather on one post and post their username because they are identifying themselves as somebody who would post about that topic. So you could have a Follow Forever Avengers fans. Follow me if you post Avengers. I like Thor, I like Loki. So we decided to do a Follow Forever to connect players with one another within the game in order that they could confess to each other, which is what happens at Hallowmas. And then, as of tomorrow, they'll be able to keep or betray their friends' confessions. So it's going to get quite nasty towards the end of the week. Tumblr, obviously, is the home of fandom. So we use it to engage with fans who've made fan works as well. And as we're very story-based, we do inspire a lot of fan fiction. We don't read fan fiction, but we encourage that kind of creative atmosphere around our game. It's my personal belief that some things are just for the fans, and getting involved in them is just not the right way to go about it. That's the way it should be, and I think being sensitive to that, especially where things like explicit fan fiction come into it, really makes the fans trust us more, and it gives them the freedom to be creative in a way that they like. On Twitter, all of the main characters within Fallen London have accounts. They're mostly dormant, but once in a while they interact with each other. They have an argument or a discussion about something. So only the closest players to the games will spot that, but then that creates a massive buzz among the committed community for those who've picked up on it. We use Reddit a lot. It is pretty easy to get banned for only talking about yourself on Reddit, so we follow a lot of subs about game development. And we share our thoughts. We listen to the dev community. We don't do AMAs very often, but have had a lot of success with them when we have a big launch event. And then just a tip for doing a Kickstarter. We went onto Kickstarter before we started actually promoting ours, and we backed a lot of games that we like the look of. So it's quite nice when you see someone is doing a Kickstarter that it says that they've backed like 10 or 15 or however many other projects. It just looks really lame if there's a big zero underneath. You're asking for something from your community, so be sure to show that you're giving as well. A bit of an example about how we create a social moment for our players. This is some concept art from Sunless Sea. Our audience are pretty clever, and if you're among them, you don't need me to tell you how smart you are. In Sunless Sea, there's an island called the Dawn Machine, which is an artificial light source, and it's the only source of light on this vast open undersea. So when you come across it in the game, it's actually quite terrible and beautiful and frightening. Because it was part of the Fallen London universe that had only been described in Fallen London, we decided to tease it as upcoming content. So we posted this concept art, and we just said underneath in all caps, "Reject the Dawn Machine." And people liked that. People liked the idea that we were using caps lock when we don't usually. It was a bit different. They chewed over the phrase. They chewed over what it could mean that the Dawn Machine was going to appear in Sunless Sea. So we cross-posted it to Tumblr when we got the final artwork. There it is, in all its glory. And we put Reject the Dawn Machine there again, but we put it in the tags. And tags are like the Tumblr equivalent of whispering in someone's ear. Really, only the most attentive users will notice them, and they get kind of in-joke points for spotting them. And then other people reblogged that and started tagging their posts with Reject the Dawn Machine, and they were asking each other, "Are Failbetter trying to make this a thing?" So we listened to that conversation around our content, and we fed off their reactions to each of the social experience of the story world, which led to a 10-minute looped video of the Dawn Machine revolving, playing the terror alert music from the game, which is completely mesmerising and absolutely terrifying. And you couldn't search for this, so only those who were in the know could find it. And this was like hundreds of years later, everybody was talking about the Dawn Machine. And all this before, when you got to the island, there wasn't actually any story content there within the game yet. People were just really excited that it was coming. So our audience, in part, plays our games to feel clever. And our stories are full of references, and you need to be pretty literate to a lot of cultural touch points to get the most out of them. You need to understand how game mechanics work. Fallen London's really easy to pick up, but mastering the simple mechanics isn't enough to progress. It really is kind of by nerds for nerds. So on the one hand, we have very deeply committed players who've been with us for 5 years, and people who are landing cold to the game who don't immediately know how much rich lore there is to discover. And experienced players want to share things like the Dawn Machine because it makes them look good. It confirms something about themselves, that they're clever, that they're funny, that they're well-read. So we give people the means to confirm what they like most about themselves in front of their friends. And this is the universal truth of social media, no matter what it is you're doing. And it could save you a lot of money on social media workshops and things in your different organisations. People just want to look good. They want to back this Kickstarter because it makes them look like they know about the next big thing. They want to share this petition because it makes them look politically aware. That's the secret. There's only one rule for social media. So that's it. And even better for us, it gives them a way to introduce their friends to something that they're going to love. And we're kind of sinister and funny, so our audience can expect to be delighted by not receiving standard social media stuff from us. So it's important to discover what it is about your game, which makes people feel good about themselves, and start there. So the next point is to listen and reflect. Being on social media in these kind of creative ways is only part of the commitment. If you're present on social media as a studio, you'll get game feedback whether you ask for it or not. But your brand and your vision, your mission, vision and values, can act as a filter that just allows you to focus what people are asking for. And having your ears open doesn't mean you're going to jump when people say jump. It means that you'll take feedback, remove anything which doesn't contribute to your vision, and apply what you believe will help. Feedback can ring really loudly within a small developer. I know one of my developers doesn't even like to read the forums because it puts his teeth on edge, especially being in early access. So it's important not to worry too much. As long as you've been transparent and honest and open and consistent with your audience, they're going to respect what you come back with. It's important to know the difference between what they're telling you and what that actually means. One of my thing's gone broken. Oh. So we found that Sunless Sea, when we released it into early access, people really didn't like the combat system very much. It was kind of turn-based, and it was offline and outside of the sailing aspect of the game. So we took a really hard decision to redevelop combat, and that added 2 months to our development time, and it was a lot of work for a very small team. But when we did redevelop combat, and it's now real-time, you can see that there are targeting arcs, and there's a whole different weapons and stuff at the bottom, and there's a bit of a HUD, and that's all completely different from night and day from what we had originally. So when we did release this patch, which was called Steel, we were present in every conversation that we could find to make sure that people were downloading it, asking them what they thought. We started threads on Reddit, we were all over Twitter, all over Facebook, and by the looks of it, we seemed to have kind of cracked it. People were mainly saying that they felt that they couldn't manoeuvre fast enough to keep up with the enemies in the game, and that was coming in over and over and over again. But that feedback only really illuminated the outside of the problem. And we took a look at what we had, and we knew that we wanted combat to be leisurely and not twitchy. That's one of the fundamentals of Fallen London and Sunless Sea, is it's something you don't need to have high coordination to be able to play. So we figured out that that's what they didn't like, and of course players do often just want things to be a bit easier. And we figured out that it wasn't the boats that were too slow, the beasts were too fast. So we did a patch for that. It was on Friday, and it seems that we have in fact cracked it, and they quite enjoy it. The best thing I could find to illustrate this was a talking rat, and I don't know what that says about me, my opinion of myself, but if you can, when you can, make a communications role. Marketing can be the last thing on the list when you're developing a game. You're focusing on building the game. But the best comms comes along for the whole journey, from conception to delivery and beyond. Just trying to do the marketing on launch day is I mean, this goes without saying, but it's a bad idea. So if you can, when you can, bring someone in to take the pressure off that. And in fact, there's community management, social media, and marketing, which are all really quite different disciplines. And we ended up recruiting someone in from our community to work on analytics and with the community. Gamers are pretty savvy people. Most of us run ad block. I've actually blocked my own ads in the past. And marketing against big companies is hard. So try instead to build an ongoing conversation on all of your channels that's easy to get into, that makes people want to stick around. It requires a lot of effort from you, even though all your platforms are sort of technically free, but it leads to better engagement and longer lifetimes for your players. So that's 5 things that we've learned. To know yourselves, start with your mission, vision and values, really understand what you're doing this for, and that will give you a blueprint. Really listen to people, make that commitment that when feedback comes in that you will do something about it. Know your channels, open channels where you have expertise in-house, where it's really easy for you to create for them. We have someone who doubles to do video production, so we've asked him he's a developer, but he also makes our videos for our YouTube channel. Bring something to the party. Be different, be exciting, don't worry too much about all this Facebook best practice, short posts and stuff. Do something that is going to stand out on someone's newsfeed and be completely unique to your game and your property. And then if you can, make a comms role. Because having someone who's accountable for this and accountable for driving that kind of creativity and bringing it to the forefront of people's minds takes the weight off the team who are trying to deliver the game. And as a final word, we promised our backers if we made £100,000 that we'd get tattoos, and then we did. So this is what you might call the painful side of being accountable to your audience. Thank you very much. I'm Hannah Hanchan. Please remember to fill in your evaluations, and if you have any questions, we don't even have to leave the room because it's the last show of the day. So thank you.